Welcome back to Anime Savants, everyone. This week I am Kenjiro Suda.
This week I am Noah. Elyuden Chronicle. Can't wait. Cannot wait.
Oh, wait, what is that? Wait, Elyuden Chronicle.
It was a Kickstarter spiritual successor to Suikoden. And
Okay.
yeah, and they had a new trailer out this week for TGS, so I'm in.
Oh, okay. Wait, is that the one? No, that's not the one where it was like the three characters that got premiered. It was the one girl, the two boys, it was like the guns. Or the main character had that. Okay, I don't know. I'll look it up later. Whatever. All right. I guess what should we start with this week?
Let's get the news or whatever you want to call it out of the way.
Okay. Yeah.
If such as it is.
Yeah, I don't have that much. Basically, Eden Zero's getting season 2. Expected that shit. One thing I wasn't expecting, By the Grace of the Gods is getting a second season.
Yep.
That caught me off guard because I didn't see that many people talk about that show. I enjoyed it, but I'm like, really? Okay. So that's something. My Dress Up Darling is probably the biggest news. Actually, it's not the biggest news. But My Dress Up Darling is coming back.
I was like, the only news I took from that is like, oh, they didn't show us any preview footage, but that was the biggest given ever.
And whatchamacallit? Now the thing that I did not see coming that came out of fucking nowhere is the Genshin Impact and Ufotable collaboration.
True. Yes, I saw that little poster or whatever they had, and I was like, oh. And then someone asked me just in general like what I thought about that, because they were happy because Ufotable has such a good track record.
They do.
But it was like, if they're going to spend their studio time on this and not something else. And my only response was, good studios go where the money is. And the money is in these free-to-play games.
Yoverse has billions. So, it's a $500 million budget for this year. So that means next year it's only going to get higher. They have the money. So, I don't know. That came out of nowhere for me because I usually thought they have like an in-house studio because they used an in-house studio for Honkai Impact. So I guess they literally were like, yo, fuck this shit. We're just going to pay the best motherfuckers or some of the best motherfuckers out there. Because I couldn't see like Madhouse or Studio Trigger like animating like Genshin Impact. That's just...
that doesn't work.
It is not going to happen. So... unexpected, but I'm interested to see what they're going to do because one main difference between Genshin Impact and Honkai Impact is that Genshin doesn't really do the animated shorts that Honkai Impact does with like the musical track and like the climax of the stories are usually animated for Honkai Impact. And Genshin Impact usually has just like really high intensity like in-game cutscenes. So I wonder if the animation is going to be included into the game in addition to being, a separate, like...
Oh, I'm sure they'll find a way to put the previews in there or some kind of teaser. It reminds me of, do you know who makes Arknights? It's off the top of my head, I don't remember. But, like, they had a similar kind of internal suit. That game also makes a ton of money, which, I mean, it's just it's tower defense, essentially, but...
And they love it. I tried so hard to play that game, and I was like, I hate the chibis. I hate them.
Yeah, I'm not into that. I'm not into furries either, so it's like, okay. Like, we're good. But if you recall, they did a ONA probably like 2 or 3 years ago. Yeah. That was very well received. And
the style is cool.
Yes, I agree. But so they also have an internal studio, but the fact that they're outsourcing to Ufotable, it's probably a good thing for both sides because you probably want your internal animation studio working on things for your game or for your marketing campaigns. Yeah. And then you get a quality outside studio to produce whatever you want, for
I'm
TV
pretty sure
or
over
else.
half the studio is playing Genshin Impact. So
it might be the reason some of this shit gets delayed.
Yeah. Hey. Who knows? But I'm interested to see where they're gonna go because I guess they're putting it because I think right now the game has like a 5 or 6 year like timeline with like the nations that it's supposed to go to and the storyline and shit like that. So I'd be very interested to see how they're going to, make things shake, or if they're going to start animating the entire storyline. Who knows?
Yeah, I don't know. And I would actually kind of hope that they go a slightly more original route than just taking the lore from the game. That'd be my hope.
There are several characters that they've talked about that are actively out there doing things that we haven't seen. And then there's also a huge story thing that just got revealed with the most recent patch that opens up a whole time span for another character to they basically could explore what happened in that time span as opposed to what's happening right now. So they have options. They have options.
Yeah, so it'll look good. That's what I'll say. I don't have an opinion about the story. I mean, I played the game up until I played it for a few weeks. You played until
the end of the prologue, right?
So I definitely got past the prologue. But I'm saying I don't have an opinion about the rest of the game as far as what it can do for its story. But the world building is probably enough to do something. It just never struck me as particularly deep. And that's probably not what a show would ever try to do anyway. So
I mean, they actually did some really good fake out time travel stuff.
Oh, good.
With the most recent thing where they made you get into it and you're like, this has to be fucking time travel. There's no other way. It's time travel. And it was completely something else. And it's oh shit. Okay, well damn, got my ass, bitch. All right, cool. Because then I was gonna be worried. I was if you introduce time travel, you always say, shit gets really messy. So
right,
they avoided it. They were you think we're going to do it, but we're not. We're actually going to do something completely different. So yeah, they've been experimenting, or they've had new writers come in, et cetera, busting their chops. Every patch is a different opportunity for a new story. So
right.
Anyways, yeah, that's all. Oh, the other piece of news is that Atelier Ryza 3 Thyza is dropping. Thyza 3 is dropping. And one thing that I wanted to say is I'll probably buy the game. I probably won't beat it. I'm just gonna be completely honest. I beat the first one and I'm halfway through the second one. But I really like how the series it doesn't abandon characters. There are characters that are coming back from the very first Ryza that, for reasons that make absolute sense in the world and just in everyday life, that they were just bitch, I cannot come on an adventure with you. I have things to do. Are you kidding me? And then they bring it back in this game and they're just hey, actually, the thing that you're doing is in my area. It's in my country. I'm going to come along with you. And also, I've grown up and I have fighting abilities. And things happened here while you were out adventuring around the world. So that's just something that I thought I would at least highlight, because that's something that I like in my games and series, where it's you introduce characters that primarily aren't the main cast, and they're not the primary supporting cast, but they do exist in the world, and the world acknowledges them throughout the span of the storyline, not just oh, this is your arc and you're only gonna show up right here. So I like that, but yeah, who's surprised that Thyza gets a third game?
You could have told me they greenlit the next 6 games, and I would not be surprised at all.
The quickness in which the internet draws this girl, Jesus Christ.
Now the other thing is that I never got into the Atelier games, especially the later ones, because they all seemed kind of very linear and cheap.
Yes.
That was always my feeling about them, and if you were into it, cool, but even the systems in the game did not necessarily intrigue me as being particularly deep or deep enough to put any time into. So
no, they're not that deep. If anything, they're just they're roadblocks. The alchemy system is a roadblock for you to basically be oh, you can't go this far until you're able to craft this thing. And it's just what?
Yeah, but I'm not very interested in that at all.
Yeah.
That's not a bad thing. It's just not for me.
Yeah, it's just not for you. I've played some of the other games, and the battle systems in Ryza are definitely way more. They're not action RPG-ish, but it's definitely more ATB, time battles, where it's just you can't just sit and be I don't know what I'm gonna do. It's no, the battle's moving, the monster's gonna get a turn, boom, and they've gotten better at making it flashy. So that's one of the reasons why I've stuck around with the series, because the gameplay itself is actually pretty fun and like entertaining to watch, and it's anime-esque. So of course it's weeb as fuck.
Right.
They're like doing their special attacks, shit like that.
Which again, I don't mind any of that. I think what I'm looking for is just a little more depth. And to me, the Ryza series in particular has been very, it's like baby's first, RPG, which is okay.
Yeah.
There's absolutely nothing.
It has an audience because they keep chugging them out. So somebody buying that shit. That's all I have for news though. All right, might as well just hop right on into who do we
Classroom.
do first?
We can do
Classroom. Let's just do Classroom.
So my feeling generally was we got something in between what I was talking about last week. It's probably closer to the outcome I wanted least, even though it wasn't bad. So we found out in this week's episode that he knew this was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So it was definitely I threw that shit before I came in the room, like, And then he set up with, both the classroom teacher and as well as some members of the different classes, including the black dude who, you remember the scene where they had the English and he was supposed to say like, I'm the one you're looking for.
Yeah.
But even the English was wrong. It was
wrong.
Yeah, I'm the one you're seeking for or something like that. I was like, oh, Google Translate failed again, but that's okay. Even though it would take like 5 minutes talking to a native English speaker to just proof your script, you didn't bother doing it.
Yeah,
they never do, and that was what it was.
Nonetheless,
it was entertaining. They're gonna clearly kind of settle out what the lingering threads are in the last episode. For example, like having the black guy was there, so we knew from the beginning that there was dissension in Class C to some degree.
Yeah.
So that has to basically be a part of the finale here. My guess is that he effectively recruits Ryuan as a result of all of this.
I think he's going to recruit the girl.
I think he's recruiting all of them. And I think the way that it's going and that the direction this is heading is that instead of the classes leapfrogging each other, they begin to team up more and more on Class A.
Oh, so they all become a combined force as Class
D. And then remove the hierarchy. And so that's his way of reaching the top is by bringing everybody together and breaking. Because that should ultimately, like, that should
that's
be
actually a really good idea.
That should be the story. You know what I mean? Yeah, because like number one in Japan, you've seen this because you've watched enough anime. There's always this tension in these stories between a rigid hierarchy, the main character who is deemed as whatever, not fit for whatever that hierarchy is, but they've got a special power, and the special power is the thing that lets them overcome boundaries. And in the end, everybody, the goal is to flatten, culture.
Yeah.
To make it equal somehow. And Classroom of the Elite kind of baits you a little bit because the concept and the main character who's sort of executing on this is not your typical
goody two-shoe John Doe.
Yeah, right. Like he's kind of an anti-hero a little bit, and it's not obvious what his motivations are, but like after this episode, I mean, granted we don't know what the aftermath is going to be, but it never really made any sense to me that like, oh, his goal is just to condemn every other class above his to whatever the fate that D class typically has.
I don't think that is what his
I didn't think so either. So like the framing of this story probably has to come down to something like that, whereby because every time he, wins against some opponent, they effectively become an ally.
Yeah.
So,
or they just move the fuck out the way.
Or they move out the way, right? They stop being a problem. But they've done it like at least even in this season. They did it like twice. So I think that's sort of the ultimate end because that's I think why he was talking with our resident Negro. I think that because they said in like last season that character represented a faction inside of Class C, and then at the beginning of this season they're like something happened, and so he's no longer backing Ryuan up or whatever. So and then they had the scene this week. So I just presume that's where things are going. And that at least gives some structure to what's going on, because otherwise I'm pleasantly surprised every week as to the direction of the story, but I couldn't tell you what the structure was other than on individual level getting everybody in Class D on the same page, which doesn't seem like it's enough to carry it for multiple seasons. It's like there's only so many people in Class D who are assholes,
Yeah,
so,
yeah. Well, I have a feeling that once they get into the second year shit is going to have to deal with the new first years in addition to the third years and shit like that. I mean, I actually was really surprised to see Horikita's brother there. And for him to actually have made an agreement with him to basically be like, you have to help my sister get into the student council. So now I have questions about why is the student council important. And also, I don't believe that he's doing that because he loves his sister. I'm pretty sure he's doing it as like a sign that be like, see, my family's not just completely useless. Like, she can do something. Because that's the way that she's said that he's treated her his entire life. So that's what I'm thinking that's spouting from. But the student council shit, that probably won't even come in until like next semester. Did they even pass? They're not even at well, no, they passed summer semester, so they're almost to Christmas.
Right.
So that means student council elections should be coming up, actually. Are they?
Well, I don't even know what the arcs are. I do know, of course, that there's multiple years. And it took me a while to figure out that like these are all freshmen.
Yeah, they're yeah.
Like because my head was spinning because I'm like, okay, how is it that Horikita and her brother are in the same year?
Oh yeah, no. Yeah,
but it is. I mean, that is the case. It's not that it's not true. So I don't know. I mean, there must be some
Horikita
kind
and her brother are what?
They're in the same year because 1A through D, they're all everyone's a freshman.
Wait, 1A, A, B, C, D.
Yeah, those are all freshmen.
Yeah, her brother is like third year.
So is he in Class D?
No, he's like Class A.
Sorry, Class A. Yeah, but is he a senior? I don't even remember any.
Yeah, he's a senior because he retired the student council presidency to the next person.
Okay, so he's not in that. He's in the whatever 3A or 2A or whatever he
is. Yeah.
Okay,
he's in that one, and then the leader of the freshman Class A is Sakiyanagi, who is the chairman's daughter.
Right, because that's what confused me in season 1. Because I'm like, wait, how could they both be in the same class? So it took me a while to figure out that like who we're talking about is like this year's worth of students, but it doesn't feel like, for example, Class 2D is interacting with. Yeah, they're not interacting with 1D or whatever or likewise 2C is not interacting with that. You know what I mean? So that's just all. That's all I'm getting at.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense because none of those other classes really have come into it. They haven't really had any, like, upperclassmen drama or anything, which they're probably saving for, like, another... Maybe they don't have anything to do with them, or maybe it's a game that the upperclassmen are playing, where it's like, you have to go minimal contact, and then you have to do this, or something is going on, and it's going on with Class A and B because they only think that those two classes are the ones that are valuable enough to use as freshmen. It could be something like that. I don't know. But all I know is that like the brother and the new student council president, those were like the only two upperclassmen that like I noticed because they highlighted them in the story. But yeah. Overall, I mean I enjoyed it this week. It was nice to see Ryuin get his just desserts. And it was also nice to see Ayanokoji didn't express feelings, but he definitely was just like, I just want to make this extremely clear that like, you are not going to make me feel shit. I'm going to that make was funny. You.
I mean, I think I buy that claim, at least from his character perspective, that the way I'm going to get this guy is by not showing any emotion while I kick his ass, because it seems like... Well, okay, let me back up. I'm not sure I totally get Ryuin's character, if it fits what they have told us so far. Because did you have a feeling beforehand that he was like, the way to beat him is to just beat his ass and not show any fear? That didn't seem obvious.
I don't think to not show any fear. I did think that you're going to have to beat his ass, though. I had because his communication is violence.
I agree with that part. Definitely, I think so too.
That's how he communicates. But
that
I was
caveat, remember he said like, "Oh, even if you win here, I'm gonna keep coming. And I'm like, okay, that part fits his character. So I was thinking that there'd be something more to, undermining him than just definitively kicking his ass. You know what I mean?
Think that came into it mid-conversation because the nigga wouldn't stop talking while fighting. Like, Ayano Koji was barely talking. It was Ryuan just mouthing, and Ayano Koji was listening. And I think the moment when Ryuan was like, I've never felt fear, that's where Ayano Koji was like, all right, well, that's how we're going to fucking settle this shit. I'm just going to make you feel fear. And
right.
But also, Ayano Koji said he was like, I've been pulling all the strings the entire time. Like, I knew that this was going to be the outcome, which means that nigga knew I'm going to have to beat I'm going to have to beat the bricks off these motherfuckers. And that made me think about it in a sense of, did Ayano Koji want to do this because he wanted to let off steam for all the other shit that was going on? And then it just so happened that he didn't plan on becoming like free from the teacher's agreement. He just so happened to be free, and he was like, oh yeah, I still got this shit in the works here. All right, well, let's do it. Let's go.
Yeah. So,
and I honestly thought also that a new contract or like blackmail thing would happen between he and the teacher because of this situation. I thought he was going to the teacher and be like, you need to stop this. If you stop this, I'll agree to take the class to A again. Like, I don't want to get my hands dirty. You do this. And he was like, no, you just need to be here as the witness. Like, that's all.
Yeah, So they had to have a resolution that was pretty concrete up front. So that's kind of a requirement. And as far as what they chose, it shouldn't have felt rushed because we've been dealing with Ryuan and Class C for a while. And it's a little funny because, like, you're right, or they're correct. Most of his schemes revolve around some kind of, like, physical contact intimidation. Basically being willing to hurt people in order to get to his, his dominance over them. Yeah. Whether it was, like, deliberately injuring Horikita. Because remember how they were so incredulous at first that, like, they could be deliberately being physically targeted? And then later on, when he had kidnapped, what's her name? I always forget her name.
Oh, Kay.
Karuizawa.
Ray, Karuizawa,
yeah. So, like, when he kidnapped her, he made the point that, like, you think that there's all these, like, guardrails and safety in this school because they give you a lot of rules, and that there's all this monitoring. But that's untrue. In fact, in a way, the school encourages you to try to break those rules or find the edges of them and take advantage of it. Even all the people who really want to succeed are constantly testing the system to see exactly what they can get away with. That was a very interesting worldview ideology that I felt he wasn't lying. Like, that is true. Everybody.
I also feel like that's why Ayano Koji did what he just did right now, because he also knows some of those, or he's tested.
Sure, yes, I agree.
On other people, and so he's just like, I'm gonna go beat their ass.
Right. So what I'm driving at is there's a lot of really interesting ideas here, and since Ryuan is the villain, presumably you'd want to attack his ideology, and that's the way that you would beat him. So his ideology was, I will do what I can get away with. I'm the Terminator, bitch. Like, I'm a find you. It's on site, and I will use violence in ways that you don't think the school is going to allow. But I know that they will because I'm intelligent and I've been testing this. I'm a predator, basically. And
yeah.
Right. And I would have thought that, like, the resolution of that might be Ayano Koji whooping his ass, but, like, in service of some alternative idea. Not to say that, like, he's not one of those people testing the rules, but him to say, you've misunderstood what's going on here. I'm the one who knows how things work. You don't. You're just an animal, and I'm going to show you that you're an animal by whatever I'm going to do. And also, I don't
using the rules to get you caught up even more.
Right, but, like, I will also meet you at your level and beat you, which I don't mind that part. That part was fine. Yeah. It just felt like we went through all of this, like, psychological gamesmanship from, like, cat and mouse, only for it to end it with the main character just beating down the villain and not giving a shit. And it's like, well, couldn't we have done that a lot.
Well, I feel like we the next episode is probably going to define like what is going to happen with Ryuin going forward.
Oh, of course, yeah, 100%.
There's no, so it could be you beat his ass and he still does not give a fuck. Like he's still going to do whatever the fuck he's gonna do. That could happen, and he can get his ass beat again next episode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that what they're going to do is then expand on whatever machinations he had going on in the back to basically remove Ryuin from power in Class C and give it over to that black dude, so that then they have an ally in Class C rather than an enemy. Because all those people now know him and know that he's the one who's been pulling strings in D. So unless they die, they all kind of have to be brought on board, because that's like the Spider-Man thing, right? Like, Mary Jane can see him without the mask eventually, but anybody who knows Spider-Man is Peter Parker, you've got to deal with that in the story somehow, such that him hiding his identity still has some value. At this point, he's shown at least like 6 people that he is the mastermind. In fact, you could argue that Ryuin and his group know a lot more than Horikita does in his own class, who's his primary ally. She's supposed to be like someone who deflects a lot of attention from him. So now all these people know who he is, so you got to resolve that. I guess what my fear overall, it's not that I think that what they did was bad, but like it's one of the problems when you have to write a smart character but then put them in a lot of situations that are they don't necessarily lend themselves to like smart answers. Like the powerful crazy dude who wants to beat your ass, and the way to win him over is to humble him by beating his ass. Like that's a perfectly fine story, but then to try to make it a part of a master plan, they're kind of telling the story in reverse. They've dealt with the bad guy. Now they're going to have to spend an episode explaining why actually it wasn't just him whooping his ass. It was these 10 other moves that are going to box him in. So I would have actually preferred that it go the other way. And they kind of teased it in the beginning of the episode where they show him running around. But like that it felt like they were backfilling a story that they wanted to tell, but they didn't have time. So they're just like, okay, in this episode we're going to flash back, we're going to show him already solving the problem, and then we're going to flash forward, he's going to whoop this dude's ass, and then we'll explain what the fuck we were trying to allude to
what we were showing you in the beginning. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. I don't think that's the way you really want to do that, but it is what it is. So I'm not upset. I'm just like, I look at it from a storytelling point of view. I'm like, I would have either preferred they go a slightly different route with the maybe he earnestly was giving up and then had a come to Jesus moment. They didn't do that.
Oh no, I didn't think that was definitely no way.
Yeah, I doubted that that would be the case because nothing else has been resolved that way. But I did appreciate that he told Kuruizawa, is like, don't think I'm a great guy. Like, I put you through all this shit. I got you waterboarded. I lied to you. I manipulated situations, so you went through probably the second worst moment of your life. But I did it in order for your own good. And if she buys that, then she buys it. I mean, that's toxic as fuck. I wouldn't buy that. But if she buys it, then cool.
She does, because it's developed from just like a pseudo friendship to a crush. So now it's like it's too late.
It's like a Death Note. What's that girl's name?
Oh my God, Mika.
Mika, yeah, or whatever her name was.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of, they're trying to do a slightly more wholesome version of that, but the main character is still like, Ayakoji's a very unlikable guy.
He's
like,
trash.
Let's be very clear. Like, yeah, he's not a good dude. So they're doing that story, and I would just like a little bit of explanation as to why she doesn't have Stockholm Syndrome, because otherwise it makes the whole thing a lot less wholesome. A lot less wholesome.
I mean, I don't know if they want to go for wholesome.
I don't think they want to go for wholesome either, but they do. Well, okay. I hear that, but what has been the case with like almost all the other female characters? Even if he's up to dirt behind them, the story is trying to tell you that he's making their lives better. That's what the story is trying to tell you. That's not the character may have whatever justification they want, but the writers want the audience to feel like this is all justified, even though he is an openly shitty human being, which is a little unfair to
well, maybe
to
it's
ask
what
for.
Are they probably like highlighting that you sometimes in life you just have to take the lesser of the two evils, like you just have to accept it. Like,
but they don't think, like, Horikita doesn't think that Ayano Koji is evil. Kuruizawa doesn't think that Ayano Koji is evil. All of them, whatever they know about him, they justify his behavior either through ignorance, like Horikita doesn't know what he's really up to, but you know, he's playing the game, and it's a pretty brutal game that they're all playing. But Kuruizawa knows that he is a manipulative liar and will hurt her and get her and cause her pain, you know, in order to advance his own interests. The only saving grace is that he's doing the Iceberg Slims pimp shit, where he's like pleasure and pain. You know what I mean? Like, she's hurting, and then he shows up.
To get the protection, you're gonna get hurt sometimes.
Yeah, and like, that is presented by the story, not necessarily something noble, but it's not something anyone calls out and says, actually, this is despicable. And no one does that. And even the story goes out of its way to, like, make you feel like it's totally okay. But maybe that
might be coming.
Maybe.
Once, like, especially once Horikita finds out who the fuck he is.
I would hope so, but I have a feeling that this plays into that complaint that I had last week about how a lot of these authors are still writing fan service for their audience. So, like, Ayano Koji being a emotionless, super powerful genius
and untouchable
is a power fantasy for the type of person who sees themselves
as that
character. So the idea that then taking that character who's legitimately doing bad but cathartic stuff and positioning them actually as bad for women, I don't think is a step that they're willing to take.
Yeah,
because that takes all the fun out of what you're doing. Like, the girl should fall for him.
Like, you can be an asshole and still get the bitches. Like,
yeah, like they want that to be the case, and I'm not saying I'm against that, because it's just fan service is fan service. It is what it is. But it's just one of those cases where I look at this and they're trying to have it a lot of ways at once, and I see the game. I see what's I like it, but I see what they're doing, and like, in a sober moment, it's not cool. But we're saying a sober moment. This is a fucking anime, so like.
Yeah, good episode.
Yep,
Curious
agreed.
to see how it's gonna end, and season 3 is already coming, so
you ain't gotta worry about that.
Yeah, ain't gotta worry about nothing else. Ain't gotta wait for over half a decade, wondering what the fuck's gonna happen, or giving up on it and then being surprised. So, right. Yeah. What else was there? There was Made in the Abyss. Jesus Christ.
What do we even have to?
What the fuck is wrong with this man? What is wrong with him? I don't know what the... There's just... I thought that a good chunk of the episode was going to be like Reg struggling not to get choked out and like them having conversation. No, that bitch choked him out in the first like 3 seconds and was like, here's the body. Like, yep. He'll wake up eventually, but here,
we took care of this shit. Don't worry about that.
I win. Here you go. But then it went into, which I was been expecting the whole arc, for her to turn her anger onto Rico. And I'm just like, here we fucking go. She's about to lose a limb. It's happening. And then it didn't happen. They were like, we gotta protect Rico. I'm like, what the, y'all ain't gonna do shit. You're gonna die. And that's exactly what she did. But leave it to Made in Abyss for me to be so scared of one thing at the beginning of the episode, and then for it to completely skyrocket to another side of shit where I'm like, okay, so I was afraid of you, and now I'm afraid for you. Mm-hmm. Those monsters coming in and washing her ass was insane. Like, it actually really put into context like how dangerous it is out there. Like because we just saw her like rip and run and like fuck niggas up for like, you know, basically a full episode. These niggas are coming in individually and fucking her up. Like, they don't even need the packs. So I'm just, how the hell are y'all surviving? Like, what the fuck? Crazy. And then, you know, just, you know, body dysmorphing and, you know, limbs and, you know, people willingly sacrificing themselves for her to grow back, and her still being like, I still hate you bitches, but I'm going to eat you anyway, but I'm not going to be as mean about eating you this time. It's just like, girl, what's going on? Like, I do like this character arc that she's going through, or like that he's having Faputa go through simultaneously, where she's struggling with like her purpose. Like, she was born for a certain thing, and like she's literally just being like shoved and like made to like deal with like you can be someone else beyond what you were told you have to be. So I do like that. But when you pair that with all the gore and the screaming and the guts and the like, it's just like it's a lot. It's a lot. And then of course something happened at the fucking end where she has like the something in her eye that looked like rags or like similar to that shit. So I'm just like, oh my god. So now this is a whole other brand new mystery of like, so does Reg have an egg inside of him? Is that why she got that shit? Because she got the eggs inside of her and like she evolved to a certain point. I was like, we're gonna find out. We're gonna find out. Like, it is what it is. It is what it is. But yeah, very, very gory episode. Extremely gory. But entertaining.
Yeah, I think that the one of the underplayed stories within Made in Abyss is the idea that most of the characters that we meet outside of the main cast, whatever their backstory, whatever their motivation to go into the abyss and do whatever it is they're doing, that for the most part, they're doing it for themselves. They have some drive, some interest, whether you're talking about Bond Druid or Wazukyan from like the beginning, who kind of, is up at the top, to Rico's mom, to all these people. They are, they could be good, they could be bad, they could be, motivated by exploration, they could be motivated by sort of cold-hearted desire to be the first or the best, or to learn things like Bondrewd. But almost all of them ultimately are doing it alone or doing it for themselves. And I think that's one thing that the main cast is put together to offer a counterpoint, because they're doing it not necessarily like Rico's down there because she wants to learn about her mom, but the group is there for each other, and that's how they get through a lot of the stuff that is frankly way over their power level. Like, Reg is a cheat code sometimes, but even for him, he needs like Rico's planning and
the white whistle.
Right, all kinds of, they need each other to kind of get through everything, and in some way, every character they run into kind of has to learn that from them. Like, even Faputa, like, her arc is that you get introduced to her mostly as this avenging, like fire. Like, she's there to set things to account for what happened in the past. So it's a very much like backwards looking motivation, because you can already, you can kind of tell if the village goes away, what real reason does she have to be pursuing anything? Well, let's say everybody, she got her revenge and, for her mom and everything else. Well, the answer is nothing. And so that's the trick that this episode kind of plays, is that the whole purpose of this, of her interaction with the village and everything that kind of happens around the episode, is to put her in a different place as a result of getting back some of the things that were taken from her. Yeah. And then having to realize that it's possible to live outside of her mom's vengeance. You can't just be a tool for that. Yeah.
Well, she also saw it like being stolen in front of her face, and that's why she was losing it. Yeah.
Correct. But the village, if you go back to what the sort of rules were about value and like exchanging value, her coming in is in some ways fulfilling a debt. But it's not as if the creatures in the village hate her. Yeah. Right? Because in the end, they basically give themselves up to her. But they kind of understand, even in the rules of the village, that this is a false existence or a temporary existence that was paid for by somebody else. And so the rules and everything else that keep them inside, and the way in which they have this like hyper consumer culture where literally people get consumed and value is traded between people through life that doesn't have a lot of, intrinsic meaning. It's kind of undone when she shows up, but also That's the whole point, is that it was always going to be undone. This is not a place that could last in the abyss. Eventually, the debt had to get paid. And that's kind of what happened in the episode. And then it turns you around on her character, because you get the moment where, like, oh, she can be more than just a tragic monster. And they make you feel something by having her get eaten up. Gabu getting crushed, that was wild. I thought that was...
I mean, Nanachi had a really cool... I liked how they animated him with the damn fish rod and shit like that. I was like, oh, he looks really cool right now. But then he also said it himself. He was like, I'm still kind of useless. And I was like, yes, you are. Because you still can't fight, nigga. But okay. He'll probably come into the whole thing with, like, his brains where he's like, okay, get Rico here, go this, where's Vueko, all that kind of shit. Like, he'll come into things, but I thought that was funny how he was just like, I can't do much, but I'm gonna do something with my new helmet. Let's go.
Yeah, her walking around like half skeletonized, like, you know.
The boils of like blood of like her shit trying to grow back. And then she just immediately gets fucked up again.
Yeah, kicked down a fucking hole.
Or like that monster that like grabbed her fucking head and it had like claws just like sawing into the shit. I'm like, oh my god, you really went to town on this. Yeah, I actually thought that the fire thing was gonna stomp her ass out. Like I really thought that those like giraffe like things was just gonna be like, yeah, we don't actually want to kill that. We want to kill you, bitch, and just like go in. But they didn't. So, that doesn't mean they won't get the chance this week, though. So
no. So my final thought is just, I like this setting, especially all the stuff with the culture that they set up in the city, because it does kind of point out that, you know, in the abyss, like, you can live. It is possible to go down there and live for a very long time, and even live in a way that I know. And live in a way that, like, maybe you want to, or is fulfilling some desire that you happen to have. But at the end of the day, all the people in that city, they had nothing to lose. Which is why they're obsessed with value. Yeah. And the idea of loss is kind of worthless, right? If you have nothing to lose, then, in fact, there is no value to doing anything. And to have that all torn apart, visually, cruelly, I think that's just a great concept to explore in the way that they did it. And you can get caught up in the gore, you can get caught up in kind of the horror of what is happening in front of you, but if you like step away from it, from the tragedy and all that other stuff, I think that there's a pretty solid message that every character in the show is constantly acting out a part of, which is a lot more than you can say for a lot of storytelling, where maybe one character gets agency and gets to tell the story. But in Made in Abyss, everyone who's on screen talked about has a part to play in telling that story, which is why it's so good.
What else did you watch?
I watched the rest of Cyberpunk 2077 Edgerunner. I think last time we talked, I'd watched maybe like an episode or two. And liked it, but didn't have a lot of context for the story. I'm about like one episode away from finishing the series, and it's very fun to me how the structure of the story kind of sets, at least with the first arc of the game, the idea of like you get introduced, like you're introduced to the world. You have your main character. Main character has problems. They're financial, they're social, they're everything else. That then leads him into conflict with the hierarchy of the world, where he's at the bottom, and then you got like the corpos who are at the top, and he gets some way to get revenge, but in doing so sets himself up on a tragic path. Like you could tell that like almost all the edge runners, all of the cyberpunks that are in this world kind of scraping it wherever they are in the, you know, the hierarchy, they are still at the bottom. And so their efforts to make it in a world where life is very, very cheap have consequences, and those consequences are going to be it followed like a very tragic structure, you know, all the way towards the conclusion. And that
tone was set in the first episode. I wasn't expecting, Because the first episode was definitely like, fuck, this nigga just can't catch a damn break. Like, holy shit. And it didn't continue that tone of just like, everything is despair and you're never going to make it out. No, it got out of that. But then the overall theme of the show was just like, you got out of it for a little bit. That doesn't mean you got away from just like the suffering and just like, you know, what it is and who you are and what you were born into. Mm-hmm. And no matter how hard your mom tried, it, you know, shit still went down the way it went down. Which that was one thing that I definitely remember from the game, that like so much like random shit was happening, and like what you were saying that life is cheap. This show is like the definite, like, niggas were dying everywhere. Like, and very colorfully, very, very flamboyantly, they were dying. But it wasn't just the people that they were like chasing after. Like, pedestrians were getting washed all over the fucking show, like all over the show. And it's like they had nothing to do with this, they had nothing to do with that. And so yeah, like living in that world where life is cheap, and then he's trying to keep up and like finding a place. It's just, I don't know. I would say the episodes seemed like episodic, but they still like flowed very well together.
Yeah,
like,
you could have watched them out of order up to a certain point, and it probably would have been fine. There are a couple of like big plot heavy through lines.
Yeah.
So it was not I agree with you. Like the narrative structure was sort of more on the episodic side, but the storytelling definitely was not. And that is one of the reasons why it's an easy watch, because you don't feel like you have to constantly remember little details in order to understand what's happening at any moment. But at the same time, they don't lose track of the story. They just kind of, you know, I don't want to say it's like a head fake, but in a series like this, the idea of the main character learning more and getting stronger can overwhelm a story. It can kind of make the story about that than anything else. And so they zip around in time in order to get to other beats, sometimes things that are funny, sometimes things that like develop like Lucy's character. You know, they do things here and there to make sure that that's still in frame of what's going on.
Yeah.
But I wanted to point out the connection to the game, because the prologue arc of the game is very, very similar to this. They spend a lot of time letting you get to know a very small cast of characters with the idea that, oh, this is going to be the people that you hang out with, or this is going to be sort of the structure of what the story is, only to at the end of that arc kill everybody,
rip it all away.
Yeah, and sort of leave you with nothing, basically starting over. But you know, at least from the game point of view, like a plot line to follow to either, if you're focused on getting revenge, you could sort of say it's sort of about that. If you want to know like why something happened or why something is happening to you, that's what the game is doing. In the anime, they loosely take that same structure with David. But the thing I appreciate about the game as well, and just the world building around cyberpunk in general, that yes, it is as a whole a criticism of modern society. It's just things blown up to, 100.
Yeah.
Whether it's like classism or inequality or
addiction.
Like everything is multiplied, to the moon. But the individual stories are not about necessarily characters who, or at least the main character is not someone who is obsessed with overturning that for everybody. That's like the Johnny Silverhand character from the game, who is not you. That is just a character in the game that you're stuck with giving their sort of monologue, anti-corporate, anti-system messaging. In the show, David is plagued by a problem, but the problem isn't his like cyber augmentation, and it's not even like the inequality in the world that has put him in the absolute shit position that he finds himself in even before his mom gets killed. His problem is that he doesn't have his own goals in life. He's always taking on other people's goals.
Main shit, yeah.
And it's not like a subtle point. They literally have like 2 or 3 episodes that constantly hammer this home. That like he's got to choose what he wants from life. He can't just live for other people or live for what they want. Because when his mom dies...
Or waiting for Lucy to tell him what to do.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Like, when his mom dies, the first thing that Lucy tells him is that you can't live for your mom. You gotta live for yourself. And he doesn't really understand what that means. And then immediately latches onto her dreams and says, now my purpose is to give you... Right, take you to the moon. That's the thing that you want. And then he's lectured over time by... all of the other characters about things that, they should or shouldn't be doing. I remember the episode where he is going back and forth about killing somebody and he doesn't want to. And in the beginning of that episode, what's the leader of the Mercs? I'm forgetting his name.
Maine?
Yeah. He lectures him about, like, do you want these, like, hands from the guy who died? And he was like, they're cool, but, like, actually I have my sights set on something else because he's impressed. Yeah, he's impressed by his fist, which, by the way, is, dramatic foreshadowing.
I mean, as soon as he said that shit, I was like, that nigga's dead.
Yes. But even so, that was actually the first time in the story that he kind of identified something that was important to him. And yeah, it was kind of, like, cheeky and whatever, but clearly he was seeing this dude as like a father figure a little bit and trying to live up to the expectations of all the people in the crew. Now, we didn't see a lot of that outside of montage, but that's one of the benefits of like this particular original story is that they're not locked into having to give you all these individual episodes, about every little thing that the group got up to month after month after month. Like we know we're fast forwarding a while into the future. Maybe it's 6 months. I don't know exactly how long they intend that this time covers. But, like, he's becoming more confident as a member of that family. But it's still a guy that multiple characters mention is too good for the situation that, what I'm saying, that he's in. Like, he's not really one of them, even though he's trying really, really, really hard to do so. Lucy says it in... I want to say like episode 8 or something where she is commenting that like, not episode 8, it was earlier than that, but she comments that like, you're the type of person who would jump in to save someone regardless of how you felt about them. And he was trying to make the point, well, I did it for you. I did it, because I want you to live. And he's like, no, you would have done that anyway, no matter who it was. Cause that's the thing that makes you different from the people here. Is that you're not in this. Shit for you. Yeah. You both haven't given up on having a goal. You're not, like, shamelessly reveling in the chaos as many of the characters on that team really are. And you're, you know what I mean? Like, that is his difference. It's not that, he's becoming more like them. If anything, the worry that they all seem to have is that he is trying too hard to do that. Because everyone is constantly chiding him, like, basically, don't be like me. Don't be like this. Even though at the same time he's having these experiences that make him want to do more. Especially the shot where both him and Maine also shoot up the what do you call it? The immuno blockers at the same time, and they literally animate them the same way, like they're having the same reaction. Or how he doesn't like fizzy drinks and he definitely doesn't like alcohol, but he's kind of forcing himself to do it because that's what it means to be like an adult and
part
to be
of them.
Yeah. So there's all kinds of great, like, development in that milieu, but you also know this is a tragedy, and so when people die, they die.
Yeah, there's no, his brain was saved on a hard drive. The nigga's dead.
Niggas get their cap heads blown off, stabbed in the brain.
What episode was that? Was that episode 6? The main episode, honestly, like, that shit was just fucking phenomenal. That shit was so good. From, like, the way that they, like, experimented with just, like, the different shading. And, like, even with the very beginning, to show the difference between what Maine originally looked like and what he looked like today. It's like, whoa, nigga. What is this? Like, that's how far you went? And then even to the point where the deaths aren't even, like, fucking fair sometimes. Like, sometimes they don't even get taken out by niggas who are stronger than them.
No,
like,
it's just
Homegirl got taken out because she was trying to help Maine, get out, and she got fucking popped in the fucking head by a random motherfucker that was
and that's below, how it goes.
Below the floor. Just randomly shooting. So, like... Yeah. Shit's not fair. It's just not fucking fair. I did think. Well, you have one more episode. Let me make sure I'm not like spoiling.
I mean, it doesn't make a big deal to me. Like I know where this is going, so it's sort of like can you spoil a movie that is just Last of the Samurai or whatever? Yojimbo or something. Like it's the same story, but it's just in a different setting. Like I know everybody is mostly gonna die. I'm pretty sure most of like the supporting
now listen
cast,
how some of them die in that
right?
Episode.
Exactly. That's the exciting part. That's the exciting part to me. So I don't really, my position on most spoilers is that if a story is like good enough that it would be ruined if you told me personally the details, then it probably wasn't that good to begin with. And if it's something that won't be ruined, if you tell me because the execution is so high, then I also won't care because the experience will be mine anyway. But that's me. I'm not saying that like everybody should have that opinion. But like I know where this is going, and I'm pretty sure I know other details given like when this is set and some other things that would require lots of these characters to be dead. So I don't care. But it's a for those who have not seen it yet. Obviously, I don't want to go into that and ruin it for you guys. But there are some kills in here that even before the finale, like the random shit that just happened to JK was like. It was like after like they have like a whole conversation, they turn around, that nigga's dead.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, like, and honestly, I thought Rebecca was gonna get taken the fuck out too when she just like ran towards the nigga. I was like, yo. Ooh. So you know like the discourse around her character, right? Like the lolly stuff.
Yeah. And well,
I do know. Wait, are you talking about how CD Projekt Red didn't want a lolly character, and Trigger was like, the lolly stays, or get somebody else.
Yes. Yeah.
Which, to be honest, there's definitely been some discourse about this on Twitter or whatever, weird shit, where lollies are a part of anime. They're fucking everywhere. Like, that's understandable. But I think there's some weird shit going on where people are just like, but lolicons are a problem. Like, being sexually attracted to them is a problem, all kind of stuff. And I'm just like, I agree with that, but the whole thing is that some people are trying to like group like, oh, if you accept the lollies, then you are a lolicon. It's like, no, because those people. Yeah,
it's a point. It's a very pointless conversation. It's very pointless because you have to think about like.
Is one of the best characters in the damn show.
I was gonna say that Rebecca's character is an absolute highlight,
especially in the final episode. I'm just like, she really like. For her to be missing, like, for, like, that middle chunk of the fucking, like, run, and then for her to come back in the way that she did, I'm just like, this is fucking great. And I watched Giga's video about it earlier, where he said that, like, all the characters, they're not just, like, carbon copy stereotypes. Like, Correct. They all have such unique and defining personalities to the point where they don't need overdevelopment. Because you already know who they are just from the few instances in which they were on the screen, which is true. Like her brother, I don't remember his name, but like I didn't need a whole
Pillar or something.
Yeah, what was his name?
Is it Pillar? Pillar? But it sounded like you're saying Pilar. I couldn't tell when I was watching it, but then I went and looked it up. But that's the name of the character.
So, like, with him, or even with, like, Kiwi and shit like that, like, they were barely on the damn screen for a whole bunch of the chunk. But when their time came, it was just like, okay, this is what it is. I know this character reacting in this fashion at this moment makes sense.
So, it's a narrative balancing act that I respect, that Trigger is actually very good at doing, because it's a common consideration in a lot of their original work. So what they do is that they make sure that their supporting cast is dramatically overdrawn.
Overdrawn. Like Mako.
Right. So if someone is sort of like a taciturn, snarky kind of, character, they will overdraw that in the scenes that they are on. Like they're actually speaking and engaging. And then you don't see them for a lot of time. But the last time you saw them, they were at like a 10 when everyone else was at like a 3 or a 4. Yeah. And that's how they get over a lot of these fairly common archetypes, because when you start to, so anyone who deals with like sound or video production, if you push, you know, the gain on, you know, say like an audio file or something, little tiny imperfections or details, like, yes, it hits you like a ton of bricks. It's like washed out and everything else, but you also will hear a lot of the imperfections that are behind the sound because you push the gain so high. Yeah. And that's what Trigger does with a lot of its characters, which in and of itself, you know, some people don't like it. Some people think, for example, if you go back to Kill la Kill or even Gurren Lagann, they feel like some of these characters who are just wacky are so wacky that they take them out of the story because they want something a little more grounded. But actually, you can go in two directions with any kind of like writing. You can be very detailed and very quiet and very like, you know, scenic and allow the character to come through in the small things, or you can overdraw them and have the characters come through in it's still the small details, but the small details that are like amped up to a 10. Like if some character has like a walk animation that you're drawing, and, you know, if you put Rebecca next to David, next to Maine, the way they even move in the environment is going to be so dramatically different from each other. Yeah. Because it's because Maine is not just big, he's huge. It's because Rebecca is not just like small, she's tiny. And then there are things physically that you can do with them that emphasize that point when they're standing next to each other. Like, if you remember the part of the montage where they're kind of doing a version of the scene from the game where you go to one of the factions, it's like the super augmented guys, and like Rebecca has been kidnapped. Like, they don't need to tell you the story because they open a box and she's just in there like waving. Yeah. Like, and it's like, oh, the story is she's been kidnapped and they've come to get her back. And then it like, you know, everyone starts shooting each other and it's like all over the top. The over the topness in Trigger animation is full of character. Whereas like in other series, it'll be like, you know, Asta screaming, you know, and you get nothing out of that. It's just that nigga loud, right? Like that's what you get out of it. But in this series and in other series, they make things super big and stylized in order to show off some aspect or multiple layers even of a character, because, you know, Lucy dissecting people with her, you know, her wires is crazy.
Fucking cool.
But then you compare that with scenes where she's just like lounging in a room at night and it's atmospheric and you're getting these layers of the character, even though like realistically she's not the most well written.
She isn't the most. Yeah. She's there for like Edward. Well, not Edward. Oh my God, David. Where the fuck did I get Edward from?
He could be an Edward. He's a nerd. He, you know, straight A student. He could be an Edward.
Yeah, which I mean the plot could have gone in a completely different direction, but also just seeing this whole show, I'm automatically thinking, I was like, y'all could do multiple seasons that have nothing to do with each other. It could just be someone else's story in Night City.
Yeah, I thought after episode 1, the gimmick was going to be he still had to go to school in order to get close to Arataka, which would then set up, you know, whatever heist or thing they were going to do. But they went in a very different direction that I think was a little closer to the game. Even though if they had done it the other way, it would have been a lot closer to a typical anime, right? You got the teenager, he's augmented, but he's still going to school. He's got he's got the classmates. He's trying to like, as a 16-year-old, like, trick his way into this other big situation that, you know, is going to end in tragedy. But they didn't go that way, and frankly, I prefer what they did because of there was going to be a very clear beginning, middle, and end to this story. If you wanted to stretch it out, that's the other way would have been the way to do it, but I don't think it would have presented as many outlandish and outrageous situations that you could just hop between and be more adult and be more mature in like what they were getting across. Because if you fill a cast with a bunch of high schoolers, even if it's in the context of the cyberpunk world, that's not gonna, you know, like,
there's only so much they can do with that, because you have to have like you have to have a whole bunch of elements that probably wouldn't even have to do with the high schoolers come into it.
Yeah.
Like with the rival gangs and all the kind of shit like that. Like maybe the classmates and stuff would come from those gangs, but then it would have to be like a whole series focused on like, you know, either the gang stuff and then not focusing on like the corpos or like something like there are too many paths that it could take.
Yeah.
So yeah, having it be like a freeform, not linked to the school, where it's just like he's with these people, like he's with this group, like it's focusing on this group who are all cyberpunks. It's like, okay,
it's trying to do one thing.
Yeah,
that is, I think the biggest benefit of the way it's put together is that there are a lot of like themes and ideas, and you know there's a lot of psychology in there around, at least in the beginning, you know, who can he trust? Because this is a world where someone flips on you and then it's a wrap. Yeah. Right? But they kind of got away from that too. They just drilled down to like, what is the core element of this story that we want to tell? Okay, it's David coming to, you know, understand himself as he tries to become a cyberpunk and a merc, right? Even though it's not into, you know, everyone around him could tell like it's probably he's destined for other things than that kind of a lifestyle. Yeah. Okay, fine. Then right there, if you don't do you don't got to do nothing with no school. You don't have to do anything with like world altering threats or anything like that. You don't do any of that shit. You can just make your character very narrowly focused on telling that one story. And if it means that, you know, you need to cut around stuff or you need to take liberties so that you can move time forward to get to an ending, it doesn't wind up feeling rushed because there's not 80,000 threads that have to all be tied up at the end where you skipped the meat of the tale, right? There's pretty much one story and it's got a beginning, a middle, and an end, and that is what it is. Which I like. I prefer that than trying to juggle a bunch of shit that maybe the writers actually aren't up to doing all of those other stories inside of there.
I also really like the details. One of the main things that stood out to me was the episode where they went and confronted the DV seller dude, like JK, and he was talking about like, oh, you think you're special, like you're not gonna have cyber psychosis, and then when he put the thing back on the shelf and it was fucking crooked, and I was like, oh,
look at that,
here we go, okay. I was like, just because you ain't got the eye shit happening don't mean that it ain't coming. So with that in and of itself, because for a moment there, I was like, yo, he's been doing it pretty regularly, so maybe he is, you know, immune or something is different with his brain that like makes him not really affected by cyberpsychosis. With that little itty bitty hint there, I was like, I know exactly where we're going. I was like, I knew this nigga wasn't going to survive in the beginning, but I was like, you for real are ending this in a cyberpsychosis state. Like, that's it. So, yeah, there was just a whole bunch of like small details littered throughout it. I really enjoyed. I mean, I got as far enough in the game to where they talked about like the old internet, and so I liked how they brought that back up with Lucy and her diving and like that being her origin story, where they literally would just like dump in like preteens into the old web and being like, get us information / die. Like, I thought that was interesting, but I also didn't finish the game, so there were probably way more like links and stuff or like shout outs, Easter eggs and things like that I completely missed. But I would even say, like, if it was coming into it, which I'm pretty sure a lot of people have done, this is completely accessible for people who have not touched the game at all.
Yeah, I agree.
If anything, I feel like the game sales are going up because I've been looking at the game like every day, like, damn, should I rebuy this shit on PC so I can play it? Like,
I mean, it's a good game.
Kind of want to play it.
That
and I played
a lot
the
of
PlayStation
issues.
4 version, so that was the most riddled one. So I'm kind of just like, I should probably just get the PC version. There have been a few patches. Let me just, you know, go on and see what happens. I mean, Trigger is just fucking phenomenal with their like whole animations, but there are so many scenes like that you could just take from. I'm pretty sure did Sakugaboro just get like inundated with just like
when it dropped it did. 100% it did. Yeah,
I can fucking imagine because the quality didn't drop.
No.
The entire fucking show, the quality did not drop. There was not one moment where I was just like, oh, okay, that was kind of a little bit lackluster than everything else. It was like, no, we're booming, we're banging, we're booping. Like, music-wise, not my style or, like, you know, favorite, like, brand of, like, genre of music.
Mm-hmm.
Still enjoyed it. Still completely enjoyed it. It actually fit perfectly with the whole aesthetic, aesthetically-wise. Like, yeah, it did borrow stuff from the game, but it still had that trigger flair. Like, looking at it, I'm like, oh, I'm getting, like, the pink kind of, like, shading from, like, that they did with Promare. I'm like, I still see hints of that stuff. I still see hints of trigger all over this. So,
one of the neat things is that, you know, again, they took the cyberpunk IP, they took what was done visually with a lot of things in the game, if you played, there's plenty of scenes you're like ripped right out of the game. This is structured the way the game envisioned that world, on its face, no question. But they also played around at the edges, not just with their own triggered style, even the music, right? Like, it was this a lot of synth, but also a lot of acoustic music, a lot of like more upbeat, poppy kind of sounds, especially when they were kind of outside the city. Like that feeling of I don't know what you want to call it, but you know, there was a contrast because the main theme is this acoustic guitar, you know, emotional rock song.
Yeah,
that's what it is. It's not a, you know, pulse pounding, bass heavy, you know, future funk kind of. No, not future funk is upbeat, but like dark wave, which is what cyberpunk as a genre is often over associated with. And if you really think about it, the show is a lot brighter than you would expect, given if you didn't know anything about the source material, especially things outside the city. It's very well lit during the daytime. The city has this feeling of like it's LA, which obviously it is, but like it's LA, but it's overgrown. And that they constantly play with like shadow and light. I remember when he's walking in episode 1, he's walking to school, and that contrast between like when he's inside the tower and then he gets outside and sees all the shenanigans. Like it feels like a kind of vibe that is a little more honest to what it would be like if this was a real place, which I like. And it's got like a dusty aesthetic too when they're doing anything that's not in like a corpo building, because shit's like falling apart and, you know, people just getting on with their lives.
They are in the desert, yeah.
Yes, yeah, they spend a lot of time in the desert. So yeah, I know we talked about it last week. I know that like we were both positive, but like me now having caught up to the very end, I think that easy recommendation. It's got you don't have to worry about like there being, you know, 18 sequels, because there ain't gonna be. There may be other stuff that gets produced down the line under the same genre, because I think this did very well for Netflix, so there probably will be more at some point, but perfectly fine entry point for someone if who's a little bit more on the adult side, whether they like the game, they're into science fiction, or you just want like a easily accessible, fairly popular show to just recommend from a great studio. And again, I said I watched it with the English dub, and I thought the English dub was really good. There's a couple of places where you can tell that it was, it felt more like a dub than just a production. But for the most part, it felt like a production. Production meaning like if you watch like, you know, Batman Brave and the Bold, I mean, obviously what people are doing is dubbing to lip flaps, but it feels more natural to that. That's what it was meant to be. This show, it is the original audio and dialogue is Japanese, so it is sort of formatted in that way, and there's some stilted takes that just come from the fact that you can't translate some things perfectly and have it feel all natural. But there was a ton of stuff that worked fine, and the characters who speak Japanese natively in the show speak Japanese, so they use the Japanese dub for that.
Okay.
Yeah. It's in a few places. It's not in a lot of places, but it's noticeable. So I think they did a great job. I think that like no matter how you like to pull your anime, it is good or great at all of the things or enough of the things that anybody would probably be satisfied with it, unless you have a problem with gore, you don't appreciate some of the triggerisms in the style of animation, or you don't like mature themes such as like nudity and sex, because there is copious amounts of both of those things.
Oh yeah, I mean in the first episode they have like the masturbation machine.
Yes.
People just masturbating on the sidewalk. Yeah.
The first time I saw that I was like, man, they could make that now. I mean, it has been. I mean, it has been made. I've seen those things, but I mean more as like it was cheap enough that bums were doing it.
Yeah, I mean, well, also they didn't even have to touch it with their hands. It was just going to fucking town.
You just put the suction cup on. I mean, I hesitate to say it, but that's a great idea.
That is accurate to the universe, though.
Yes.
So,
yes.
No, it is what it is. All right. What else did you watch?
I mean, I watched Harem.
Oh, okay.
I won't go into too much depth, but we got an episode with 0 porn.
Oh!
0.
So that means this week is going to
That's
be...
what, exactly. On Wednesday,
this week is going to be...
This nigga's going ham. Because they added the new character here.
Oh, a threesome's coming.
It's a dwarf girl.
It's a what?
A dwarf girl.
Oh my god. Okay.
That's what I'm saying. But this episode had 0 pornography. 0. So
they're setting it up.
Well, I mean, that's the whole thing. That's what bothers me about this show. It bothers me it bothers my spirit. Okay, is that in another, like, I was talking about this with Joe. We had a little Twitter thread on it, but like, I'm not saying that this is a good show. I'm not even saying that the writing is like amazing and somehow like, oh, this amazing writing is wasted on what is just a pornographic exercise. I'm not saying any of that. Because all those aspects that are actually competent about it aren't necessarily so great that I would tell people to run out and watch it because of that thing. Yeah. But what irritates my spirit is that in the moments when there is no pornography, there isn't necessarily this overwhelming
droll.
Yeah, like they're not trying to get to it. That's I think the part that is such an unusual choice. You know,
they're actually doing world building and
they're like having a regular time. You know what I mean? Like, oh, we're trying to navigate this labyrinth. We're trying to get some money. We have goals. We're trying to understand the world. We're just doing regular stuff, which in its own context is perfectly reasonably written. You know, so you can forget about the porny nature of what you're watching. And then the adventure will take a pause and they'll go home and the first thing this nigga's thinking about is, all right, now I need to fuck this chick. And they just do it.
You know what? You can't be mad at that though.
That's the thing. I think I'm mad that I'm not mad.
Yeah, okay, that's what I was like, cuz there's something, but okay.
And they really do go out of their way to try, even though it's impossible, to like to both imply and then beat you over the head with there is consent here, that everyone here is enthusiastic about what is happening. Yeah. And I don't need that because I know it's a farce. Like you ain't gonna fool me, nigga. Like I know what this is. But then it ends, and it's like, oh. We're back to like having a normal story. If we had just cut this scene, let's say you just implied that something happened here. All of the issues that I would have with the setup for this, like I cannot in my own heart get behind a story that's essentially based on slavery. It's not going to happen. Yeah. So too bad, right? That maybe that's my problem, but I ain't into that. But if you overlook that part and just and take away the salacious shit that's in it, if you just applied all those scenes and then use the rest of the runtime of the series to continue to do the stuff that the writing team is apparently very competent at. I would argue that this would probably be it'd be in the range of like I don't want to say Log Horizon because Log Horizon is up here. Log Horizon is like an 8.5 or 9 out of 10 depending on what your taste is. You know, but this would easily get to a 7, and it would have a much smaller cast.
I was thinking like 6 or so.
It could, no, I'm saying it could get to a 7 because it has a much smaller cast, and the time that they all spend with each other is charming, and it's free actually of a lot of the garbage filler writing that you would normally. And maybe that's the deal, right? The filler stuff would be the porn, and so they've concentrated what their writing team is good at on just those other areas. Anyway, the point of the matter is, I was just shocked this week that we got no sex scene whatsoever. There was no implied anything. It was just very straightforward around party building and, you know, this guy trying to get a blacksmith. I was like, all right, I get behind that. Like that episode, sadly, is a taste of what the show could have been like if it wasn't obsessed with getting you through the dungeon stuff and back into bed with somebody. But I digress. It's almost over. We'll probably never talk about it again. Other than by comparison to shows that try to do the same thing but just actually enrage me. Yeah. So that's pretty much it. Outside of that and like Overlord, which I have no comment.
I'm not even trying anymore.
Wait till the season's over. Go back and watch it, and then you'll be like, "How do they always end on a flat note every year? How is this possible?" Like they'll give you the
Where's Tanya? Give me Tanya season 2.
Yo, exactly.
Give me Tanya season 2. Like,
bruh,
I need it. I need it at this point. And. Yeah. Yes. They said that like Tanya season 2 had to come before Overlord season 4 because the mangakas are really cool, or like the writers, they're real cool with each other, and so it's just like it has to be coming. It's just like when? Where
the fuck is it?
We need it.
This is why I can't trust Japan, because sometimes these niggas will be like, "Oh, we are the most. We will stretch out an IP that you love to make every single solid cent and dollar that we can."
I just saw some what was it for? It was some Japanese advertisement that was collaborating with isekai. Like isekai like all over, and Tanya was one of the main girls on it. So I'm like, if you're using this to like advertise to like just like the broad audience, where the fuck is the second season?
That's what I mean. Sometimes they will find a way to like squeeze every cent out of, you know, paying customers who are into some IP. Like, and to give you a point of what I'm talking about, there are some series where the number in Japan, the size of the paying fan base for that series is tiny. It's like maybe 150,000 people in total in the whole country. But these companies will be like optimized to like pull every single cent out of those people, to the point where like
people.
Yeah, like they'll be living in a microwave, like literally just giving every dollar they have to like buy avatars and character packs and spin gacha wheels to get, you know, their faves. But then the company won't do something like take all of the money that is being plowed into the series and just make it bigger. Give me another season
to make that money.
Right, like it is crazy to me. At least the Koreans get it. These Korean like both the webtoon side as well as like the mobile game producers, when they get a ton of money, they are the first thing they're thinking about is like
expansion.
how do we expand? Give them more stuff. Some of these Japanese companies, I don't know what they're thinking. Why the fuck would it take like I think we talked about
now that you say that about the gacha games, that's exactly right. Like the Korean gacha games, like once they get big, they expand like rapidly, and like even with like the free shit that they give you, you get a lot of free shit in those Korean gachas. You get so much free shit, but I feel like that's a marketing tactic because you getting the free shit gives you the semblance of like, ooh, I can keep up because like they keep giving me this stuff. Like things are gonna get better. I'm gonna be competitive. Blah blah blah. Which you're not. You still gotta spend money. While with Japanese gachas, it's bitch swipe the credit card.
Right.
Swipe the credit card.
I think this is a perfect example of this is like No Game, No Life. Okay? Now, I'm not saying that it's like amazing or anything. I like it. I like it a lot.
I like that. Yeah.
Aesthetically, it looks great. The production, that one season they got by Madhouse was really, really good. It's not like, setting the world on fire concept-wise. And if you stare at it long enough, you see all the holes in almost everything that's supposed to make it like entertaining. But the point isn't whether or not it has flaws or not. The point is that the light novel, to this day, is one of the highest selling light novels for the company that makes it.
I've always heard this. I've always heard that the light novel sells like hotcakes.
Yeah, so I don't know what the parent company for MF Bunko is, but like that's the company that owns them. But every year, No Game No Life accounts for something like between 17 and 25% of like all of their profits. All of their profits. Okay.
Wow.
Okay. So let's put on the low end. Let's say it's like only 15%, but it's a lot of money. The TV show was produced in 2014. I'm not even sure that if the light novel the run is over, because I think there were multiple breaks that were taken. So I don't even know if it's technically running till present, but I think like there's been some really long gaps between the various volumes. Mm-hmm. So and I know that there's not a new one out anytime soon. It's just not over yet. And for whatever reason, it has been 8 going on 9. I guarantee you, it'll be a decade between actual seasons. They made the TV show and they made one movie, the movie Zero, which is the.
And I had some kind of fucking hope when the movie came out. No.
It does not make any sense to me that you would have such an important IP that you have hoard out everywhere. You can find No Game No Life shit in almost any
collaborations and
they are literally everywhere. But at the same time, like they just can't get it together to schedule a series, which is the thing that for Western audiences, that's how they're going to interact with this series. They are not at pachinko parlors playing No Game No Life themed slots because those don't exist here.
Yeah.
So there's so much money that gets left on the table for a lot of these publishers. And a lot of it is the international side because they literally just still don't get it. It's 2022 and so many of these publishers just don't understand, can't do anything with these like series that are huge in the US. They're huge, but they go by Blu-ray sales in Japan.
That's why we ain't got no fucking Raka no Yusha.
Right. Blu-ray. The light novel volumes are slightly down in Japan. The fuck? What? So, it's interesting because I saw there's an account I follow on Twitter of an individual who moved to Japan, and they were at a Harry Potter themed stage play. Mm-hmm. Which I'm sure only runs in Japan. And, that in of itself is, like, not remarkable. But I was thinking about it after the fact, and I was like, somehow Western companies, who historically did have a lot of challenges entering the Japanese media market, but they're so profit-oriented that they are driven to figure it out. And the idea that there's, like, a pretty popular Harry Potter themed stage play running in a random city, in southern, not even in Tokyo, where some southern city in Japan, and it's probably making money. Tells me one thing about the ethos over as far as like west to east, like how do we serve an audience wherever they are with stuff that they're used to? They probably licensed it to a production company in Japan, and they worked something because there have been a couple pretty major Harry Potter stage productions in the U.S. But what I was seeing on the Japanese side looked nothing like what they were doing in 2016 when they had forget the name of the big stage production, but it was it was like a Broadway style production there.
Yeah, The Cursed Child.
Yeah, this one was not that. It was a much more Japanese style production.
Yeah.
And they adapted it and they made it work. And I was like, okay, because they know that if you serve your audience, they'll put the movie out in Japan, it'll do money, they'll translate all the books. They get it. When you go the other way, these Japanese companies struggle so much to do what I consider the most basic shit in the world. And
I mean, look at Bandai Namco. All they did was just bring the Gunpla over here.
Yeah. With like the most minimal effort possible, mind
They
you.
just brought it over here.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm back on my rant about it. What were we talking about before this?
It started with Overlord.
Okay, yeah. Like, so...
Overlord, Tanya,
yeah. Overlord cannibalizing Tanya cannibalizing Overlord as far as, like, time goes. Like, I'm not saying it's unacceptable for projects to take a long time. I'm not saying companies have to announce everything that they're doing, even if they're behind schedule, or even if it's sort of like, okay, that's like 3 projects down our slate, so we gotta get through them. But, like, look at Chainsaw Man, okay? Chainsaw Man is gonna be great. Chainsaw Man is going to do numbers. Chainsaw Man is going to get a lot of praise from a lot of people. But I got this feeling that Chainsaw Man is not going to do well in the analytics. And the reason why, I mean, like, you'll see the huge boost in, like, volume sales and all that other stuff that people like to talk about. But Chainsaw Man's moment was, like, a year and a half ago. It was a year and a half ago. You know, if you want to be further about that, when they announced the anime was, like, what, more than 2 years ago? Am I wrong about that? It was just the announcement. Maybe it was 2 years?
I don't know if it was in 2020.
I think it might have been at the end of 2020.
Okay.
I have to go back and check up on that. But at the very least, there was a groundswell of interest in a Chainsaw Man anime at that time when it was getting closer to ending. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So this kind of encapsulates my problem, which is this show got delayed, but it got delayed because of, like, major production issues. And part of the reason why there's all these major production issues is not just COVID. It's not just, like, crazy shit like studios catching on fire or dudes running there trying to shoot everybody up or anything else. And it's not because they weren't confident enough to put it out during other seasons, because there have been some seasons that looked crowded going in, but then in reality there was almost nothing nothing to really follow in there. It's strictly because I believe they were obsessed with reaching a certain level of quality that they missed the window on. And by the way, I was right. It was in the end of 2020 that
it was in 2020.
Yeah, okay. The end of 2020 so because I knew it was like it's been like 2 years. That this was a lost opportunity in large part because of the way this business works. There are series that barely have 50 chapters out that immediately got a turnaround on adaptation. You tell me how much sense it makes that Spy Family is, like, going into season 2 and Chainsaw Man hasn't even hit its first season. Does that make sense?
Technically, it's core 2.
What? Okay, yes. We've had this fight. Yes. We're getting core 2 of season 1. But I'll just say, let's just put it this way. We're that 24 episodes of Spy Family have been adapted already in some form or fashion. Like, 12 episodes have been released. Another 12 episodes have already been written and probably mostly produced as of me talking right now. And by the end of this year, they will all be out. Right? Or early next year.
End of this year. Yeah,
end of this year, early next year.
By Christmas, yeah.
Yes. All of this before a single episode of Chainsaw Man has even aired. And Chainsaw Man was this phenomenon that was just reaching the peak of its popularity when it ended. Okay? There is something wrong with the way in which these productions are getting put together, where I guarantee you it's going to be a meme next season where people are going to say that Chainsaw Man is the best, whatever of the season. And if you look at, like, the viewership numbers and everything else, or whatever you want to track popularity, it'll be, like, middle of the pack. And that's not because it sucks. It's not because, like, the animation isn't going to be crazy. It's just that there are moments for a series. Like, if no one knows about something, let's say it's like I would argue that, like, Spy Family was a surprise to a lot of people. You know, they may have seen the teaser information, but it didn't have, like, a huge American circulation. I'm only really talking about like the American side of anime fandom because Spy Family was huge in Japan before it got made. It was a surprise hit out there. But I'm just saying in the West, you see a couple of previews if you're plugged in. Maybe you are already a fan of other stuff, so people tell you about it. If you are a normie and you have like Crunchyroll or something else, and I think they're the ones that are releasing it, but correct me if I'm wrong. That's how you find out about stuff, and then you watch it, and you're like, oh, this is great, this is amazing, and you get into it. But realistically, that's actually not how things pop over here. How things pop over here is that there's some crazy moment that you have this build up of like support, interest, people are excited, then it falls, then there's a crazy moment like Demon Slayer, and it gets right onto the map, and then it's off to the races. Chainsaw Man is going to look great, but I don't think it's a very approachable series just from like a storytelling. Even like the visual presentation is not, it's arresting, but it's not like necessarily cool to look at. So it's going to struggle, I think, to get back the energy that it would have had in place a year and a half ago, or even a year ago, if it had released when it was supposed to be released. So I just have this, I'm not even worried about it. I'm pretty sure that that's what's going to happen. It's going to get lost in the wash of stuff that's coming next season. Oh boy.
Yeah, because honestly, after looking at a lot of the PVs for the original things that are coming next season, there's a lot going on.
Yes.
And I liked a lot of the original PVs. So yes. That wouldn't even surprise me.
I mean, think about it. Mob Psycho already has a built-in fan base that was clamoring for a third season. Spy Family Part 2, surprise hit of 2 seasons ago that had everybody like just on the edge of
losing
everything.
Their shit.
Yeah, losing their shit. Bleach is coming back.
10 plus years of anticipation.
Yeah, we have the 6th season of My Hero.
My Hero.
Right. Yeah. And these are just returning stuff. Then you have
you got Iruma-kun, which I mean the huge following, but not my.
Right. Uzaki's coming back.
Yeah, Uzaki's coming back.
Just go down the list. It's just, Eminence in Shadow. I'm actually more excited for that one than I am almost any of the other returners. It looks fucking good. Golden Kamui again, but which by the way falls into the exact same category as Chainsaw Man of a really, really, really well written, beautiful show, lots of depth, tons of characters, great production, totally under the radar because the Golden Kamui manga ended a million years ago, and they don't do much to capitalize on because it's not traditionally marketable. Because the story is just a story, and you can just go down the list of all the stuff it's competing with, and you're gonna tell me that oh yeah, the right time to release it was 2 years after the series was hot, because you kept delaying. There's gonna be a new song at the end of every episode. Well, that's you over invested here, and you weren't confident in some things before, so you just kind of. You're looking for a hook. I'm not saying it's bad. I mean, I love it when things are very decadent, right? They just broke the bank doing the craziest shit. But it just feels like the timing is all wrong. And the moment is not there. And in missing all that shit, now am I going to watch... And I like Chainsaw. I've read Chainsaw Man. I think it's awesome. I'm watching Witch from Mercury. I'm gonna be straight up. If Chainsaw Man and Witch from Mercury drop on the same day, and I gotta watch only one of them, I'm watching Witch from Mercury.
I mean, yeah.
So, yeah, that may be a little preview of our next season's offerings, but I'm just saying they needed to get their shit together, and for whatever reason, delaying this great series as long as they did has just sapped a lot of my. Not my personal interest because I think it's still good, but I don't know if this was the right idea.
Possible virality.
Yeah, I don't know if listen, they do this in movies all the time, but I would want to get out of the way of Bleach returning.
It's really bad.
I would really want to be out of the way of that one.
It's literally a big 3 returning.
Yeah, I don't know if I want that kind of smoke.
Which also goes into like the other conversation of just being like, there's no other big three. Like, it's just, those are the big three for it. Because the other two are still running. And this shit's coming back and shaking the fucking, like, just shaking the table. Like, literally tectonic plates are fucking moving. So.
Right. Would I have chosen this? No. I don't know. I mean, the sad part is that it takes a lot of digging, especially on the Western side, to understand sort of the inner workings of a lot of these studios. I mean, there are interviews out there. A lot of them just don't get translated. That they talk to all these folks, people who are involved, and you kind of find out like, oh, this was like a timing or scheduling thing, or like here's some challenges that they went through, or whatever. And it's great when some of that kind of washes back into Western anime spheres because you learn a lot about the production process. But I cannot possibly imagine that like this is a good idea, and I really want to know sort of what was the motivation or the challenges that they ran into that got it delayed as long as it did, because this show was supposed to be out in 2021, the end of 2021. I mean, they didn't put a release date when they announced it in December, but normally the way things work, and we've talked about this on the show, is that if they are at a point where they're announcing a series, but they have no, like, none of the teaser stuff ready, that means that they just finished or they are finishing up pre-production. They don't announce before pre-production.
Yeah.
That this doesn't, very rarely does that happen. The closest... The only time it does is with like series like My Hero Academia or like big series where the budget has already been allocated for a return. So you get to that last episode and they'll say, "Oh, season 2 is coming." You know, like obviously they have not. They are probably just starting at that point. But that is like unusual that will occur. So they fucked up. I'm just saying that right now. Chainsaw Man might be the best show of next year or next season slate, but it's going to underperform whatever it was going to do if it had come out on time. So I stand by that, and people want to come at me because I'm saying that like, oh, you rather watch Mob Psycho than Chainsaw? You rather watch Bleach than Chainsaw? Yes, yeah. Because you know what? If it's funny because like Bleach is even later to the party than the Chainsaw Man is, but ironically, the way that the gap that they're filling is a very different situation. There are Bleach fans who are no longer anime fans.
Yeah.
Okay? This is gonna get them. This is gonna get people who held the torch. This is gonna get people who never watched it. This is gonna get all that shit.
Yeah, because it's a whole bunch of niggas. It's been very apparent there's a whole bunch of niggas out there who have not watched Bleach.
Yes.
Like, if anything that this is showing, I'm like, there are a lot of niggas out here who have not touched this shit at all. Oh my god.
And you know the best part about all of that is just we're kind of switching gears a little bit. When they get to the end of this this continuation, there are two things that they can do. They will do. I promise you that they will do this. That are just purely money-making moves. Pure money-making moves. Number one, they are going to tease the material from the new chapter that got dropped.
Oh, yeah.
It's not going to go any further than that. You may not see another Bleach anime for 5 years, but they're going to stick that shit right at the end. Mm-hmm. You know, to let you know that, like, this is not done. Number two, they're going to tease some Burn the Witch crossover.
Oh, well, I was expecting a new gacha game.
Well, I mean, there definitely will be.
Yeah,
but you know what I mean? Those things are going to be part of the whatever you want to call the rollout or the roll end.
Because Burn the Witch is the same universe, it's just in the UK, right?
Yes, that's correct. And I don't want to say it's been stated because Kubo's kind of wacky when he rarely gives an interview about anything. Mm-hmm. But it's pretty clear that the studios are on his ass for everything. They want Burn everything from him.
And Bleach.
Yes, but you could argue that while the Bleach 1,000-Year Blood War is being produced, he does have a full-time role as part of the script story proofing. Like, he said this on multiple occasions that he is deeply involved with the adaptation, including filling in gaps that were not covered for time reasons in the manga, which is why everybody's like sweating, like, oh god, we're actually gonna get the Zero Squad, like the fights to this to that. Like, I don't know how deep it's gonna go.
How much are we gonna get?
Yeah,
we're getting 4 cores of it, so
yes,
we got time.
Yeah, and
time.
4 cores, and they're not going to be consecutive. So I'm pretty sure you're going to get time off in between. So you're talking 4 cores is really like 2 years plus.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And they're not doing them back to back. Like, there's probably going to be a season or 2 in between each of them.
100%. So what that means is that it's time to hype people up for some other shit. And that's where Bleach coming back can serve a lot of purposes. But the hype level is going to be through the roof. Through the roof.
And Chainsaw Man might get swept under the rug because of that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if anything, I would have just gotten... And then I heard there's only 12 episodes. And I'm thinking, like, how the fuck are you going to cram... I think the first arc is 60 chapters. It's not a long series. It's like... Well, maybe it's not 60. Maybe it's like closer to 40 to 50. I don't know.
And how long is the first part?
That's a great question. I could probably check. So there's sort of like a mini arc in the beginning. Mm-hmm. And maybe it's like 10 chapters long. And then the story starts. And that goes for like 30 to 40. So if you put those together as like the intro, it's like 30. And it's not, again, Chainsaw Man is not like this 500 chapter long sprawling.
No, I heard it's pretty short.
It's very short. I think maybe it's like 180. It's not long. So the bottom line is that there is a lot of material, but it's not necessarily written in such a way that it makes it easy to cram into 12 episode slices.
Oh, yeah. You said that earlier. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I'm sorry. It's like 100 chapters. There we go. So it's like...
Oh, okay. Now that definitely is shorter. Okay, yeah.
And the reason is that it switched to a bi-weekly release.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Okay. What were we even talking? Oh, what we watched and not Overlord. So,
yeah.
Do you have any recommendations for this week?
That is a fantastic question. I don't really have anything that stuck out specifically new that I came across this week that I could say is sort of like, hey guys, you should go check out this other stuff. I want to note 2 developments, and maybe they will become recommendations in the future, but it's going to be a long time before we know. So if you are a reader of Jump or Jump Plus, you probably noticed that a few new series have kind of snuck their way onto the slate. I can't speak for all of them because I frankly have not read them. So stuff like Dark Doctor Ikaru, and maybe some others that I'm missing, like Ghostbuster Osamu. We're at a point where they're trying to sort of replenish and find sort of the next series to carry. The only one of the new series that I've read that I felt had a potential to be good is one called Tokyo Underworld. It's a death game series. The basic premise is that there's 2 twins, a pair of twins, who have a physical connection to each other. Like if one of them gets punched in the face, the other one feels it. They're kind of like dichotomous. Oh. They're kind of like dichotomous characters where one is like, the punk who with a heart of gold, and the other one is like the straight and narrow thinker. So they're a pair, right? They kind of complement each other. And they live in a world where there is a rumor of something called Tokyo Underworld, which is a alternate reality, sort of like the flip side of Tokyo, where if you are if you cause someone to kill themselves, you can be sent there to be punished or judged. And their homeroom teacher is being bullied by other people in the class and eventually commits suicide. But before he dies, he curses everyone in the class, saying that, like, you were the reason why I I died and I'm going to send you to Tokyo Underworld. And so they all kind of get transported to that other world. And so immediately it's a death game where the odds are stacked against the classroom.
Yeah.
And they start killing motherfuckers real quick. Like getting decapitated with a shovel, you know.
Oh. Okay.
Like a lot of wild stuff, but it has the flavor of a lot of paranormal death game series. The art is pretty clean. And when they lean into the horror, such that it exists right now, it does have like a satisfying kind of grotesque gruesomeness to all the things. So like you definitely feel a sense of threat. And as far as we know, you know, it's paranormal. So there is some like supernatural stuff that is sort of as a part of the DNA of the series. It's not really clear how far they intend to take it. I mean, obviously the main characters have some ability, but it's not, you know, I'm not Super Saiyan Goku. It's like they got to think their way out of a lot of death game-like scenarios. So I liked what I read, but it's only 2 chapters have been translated. So yeah, so it's super early, super early. But I think the attrition that has happened in Shonen Jump means that there's a lot of basically open space for series to show themselves. I expect a lot of these are going to get canceled. And there's some series that have been running, you know, longer than I would have thought. I mean, we're getting the Undead Unluck anime at some time. It's been announced. I don't know what exactly it's supposed to come. But that's a series if you'd asked me like 2 years ago or a year and a half ago who was going to be on the cut list, I would have said Undead Unluck would have been one of the ones that wasn't going to make it. So who knows what's going to come out of this latest crop. There's a few other names of stuff on Jump Plus as well. I think Skeleton Double comes to mind, but I just there's something about it that's like it's both too weird and not weird enough. You know, I don't know. So that's my minor recommendation. Just keep an eye on Tokyo Underworld. If it lasts the year, I think you'll probably see something like an anime adaptation followed by like some Netflix stuff, because it seems perfect for like a Netflix adaptation.
Live action.
Yeah, live action. It seems very, very well suited for that. Besides that, I am back up to date with Jujutsu Kaisen. Fucking great. What else do you need to know? It's just good. It's just really good.
Okay.
They you know, Akutami, now that the show and the series is more mature in its, you know, growth, you can kind of tell that he's like letting ideas down that he would have like held a lot longer or tried to like, you know, incrementally introduce into the story. We basically got like a hot drop of 2 new characters to be a part of Maki's development that kind of like they didn't exist, and then within 3 chapters I'm like, these are the greatest niggas I've ever seen in my life.
Oh my god, what?
These are the greatest niggas I've ever seen ever, because they're so ridiculous. Okay. But they come literally out of nowhere, and I realize now that like that's one of the best parts about this particular arc is that it's the ability to just add characters and then justify that they're there based on, you know, oh, they were a spirit from a prior era, and they can be completely overpowered. They can be wacky. They can be, you know, whatever you want. And it's now believable that this is possible in the context of the story, where if they had done some of this shit earlier, it would have really felt like an ass pull, like, because you're getting used to your main cast and all the supporting cast, and like adding a whole bunch of like randomly overpowered new characters at once would break the story. But we're at a point where like the story can actually handle doing that kind of thing, and they're there for a second and they're kind of out. Like I'm recalling the Yuta fight, the 3-on-1 between like the cursed spirit, the ninja girl, and the dude who shot beams out of his fucking pompadour. And at that time I was like, oh, this is like the weirdest thing that they've done, but damn, does it work. And now we're at the next level of that. We're like 2 levels beyond that, because we got like the artist, which I don't know if you read so far, so I'm not gonna go any further than that. But like, there's the artist who's crazy, and then some other dudes. But like where we're at with Maki, unbelievable, unfucking believable.
Okay.
Just it's just like she's scaling to Toji Fushiguro level. Like
I don't even know who that is. So.
The what do you call it? Oh wait, yeah, you haven't. Have you read?
No, I haven't read any of it.
Oh man, I guess that's what's going to be in the next.
The second season. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Because they'll probably do the.
I think Shibuya is part of the second season.
Well, yeah, it's going to be the back half of it, and I bet you they're going to cut it right in the middle because they have to do the Gojo Gaiden, 5-star. What do they call it? Like the 5-star vessel mini arc, which is where you meet Toji and you kind of learn a lot about the backstory of a bunch of characters. But suffice it to say, Maki has always been positioned because she has basically the same heavenly restriction that character has to reach his level. And once you realize what he was able to do, and now how they're making it organic. They're rather than just say, okay, she went through some hardship and now she's that strong as that dude. They have put this girl through the fucking ringer. Like everything that you could do to fuck with her, they have done in the last 2 years of content since. So this last couple of weeks that I've caught up again, I'm like, okay, I'm in. She is now at the upper tier or close to that upper tier of power in the entire series. Like, let's go. I'm ready for it.
Okay then.
Yeah, so that's my shit. So they're
Jujutsu Kaisen handling business. Jujutsu Kaisen coming.
Yep, yeah, we'll revisit this in 3 or 4 years when they finally get to it.
Another season, another movie, another season.
Yeah, exactly. I still say people should just read it. It's not that far. I've watched a bunch of people do read-throughs of the Shibuya incident, and god damn, it's fun to watch other people go through what I went through. But I would save that. If anyone's gonna catch up at least to that content, I would save it until the right before the new season comes out, because I think that's my preference, and what I would recommend people is you read it concurrent to the actual series airing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because then you get you're still in the hype cycle for the show. And you can stay kind of up to date with whatever's happened in the show. If you have that nudge to want to know more, you can read ahead, but you're not really going to, you can modulate that yourself. And if you're like me, who just wants to see stuff that's really cool on paper adapted into something even cooler in animation, then being in that mode while the show is still a product of conversation for folks, I think that's my ideal way to read. Now, other people are like, I don't want to know what happens. I want to go week to week. Fine, totally fine. Nothing wrong with doing it that way. But I think you get a bigger picture because you also see what they don't include. And the anime cannot include everything. And also going back and rereading it later, you forget what wasn't there. So that is my sort of recommendation.
Okay. Oh, my recommendation was just going to be Way of the House Husband, because I've just
been that's fantastic. It. Cosign.
Yeah, cosign. I've just been watching it back to back, like nonstop. It's just really entertaining. Like I'll watch like both parts of it because it really wasn't even the second season. I just watch it all the way through, and I like don't watch it for like a month or two. And I just come back to it. I'm just like, I forgot all the fucking skits. There's so many skits. It's just like I don't even remember what happened with this skit, and then it happens. I'm like, this shit's so good. It's so good. It's like a Yakuza game put into an anime. Like it's fucking perfect. Not as wacky, but definitely on the similar level. But if you haven't watched it, go to Netflix. Just or whatever. Go wherever you want to watch it. But that I would like more seasons of that. Did they only cover stuff that's like in the manga, or did they do original episodes too?
I think it's just straight up.
Is it straight up manga stuff?
I think so.
So we might have to wait a minute for more. One thing that I would like to see is, whatchamacallit, that manga, I Know My Son Is Gay. That one's funny. and also not like BL crazy driven. It's literally about a mom noticing that like my son is gay and he's trying to hide it. So that one's cute. But I don't think they'd probably animate that one because it's like it's a lesser known one. But I think it would be a really like wholesome like slight. And I wouldn't even call it BL because like it doesn't focus on the son and like his relationships. It focuses on the mom just like noticing like, you know, what's going on with him and being like, is this what did he mean? Okay, whatever. And I feel like it could be in a similar skit format, or it is in a similar skit format to Way of the House Husband. So, you know, if they were looking for some other things, they could test that out. I don't know if it's finished or not. No, I don't think it's finished.
I don't think so.
But yeah, that's my recommendation. But also that one too, if you haven't, I probably fucked up the name. I think My Son is Gay manga. Yeah. Oh, I think Our Son is Gay. Okay. There we go. But yeah, that one cute, wholesome, no smut, nowhere to be found, very accessible. So yeah, that would be my other recommendation. And then that's it. All right. So if you have not already, make sure you follow us on social media, anime_savants on Twitter, and then Anime Savants on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, all the other places. And if you are listening or watching, give the video a thumbs up on YouTube, or make sure you rate us on the podcast platforms, because a lot of y'all be listening not on Apple and Google Podcasts. Y'all be listening on like the Podbeans and things like that. So do it, whatever they allow you to do on those platforms, thanks to Anchor. But do a thingy. It'll help a lot.
Cool. For me, next week is our preview episode for the next season, so look out for that. We'll cover a lot of things that we talked about in part here. But otherwise, if you've got something that you want us to chat about, I know we have some folks who've reached out about cyberpunk, so you're welcome for a second time. But please let us know. Otherwise, you can hit me up at Neural Handshake on Twitter. And yeah, that's it.
All right. Bye.
Peace out.